Well, good morning once again to everybody, and good afternoon to those over on the East Coast. And thank you for joining us today for the WebPunch webinar, led by yours truly, Christian Contreras, here at Corporate IT here in San Antonio, Texas. As we go through today's session, where our plan is to go through the WebPunch process, get everyone familiar with how to clock in and clock out, how to go through some other options I'll show you here in the agenda, all dealing with WebPunch specifically. So if you have any questions, concerns with other items in EPAY other than WebPunch, we'll address those separately away from this particular call today. Now, as we go through here, everyone on this session is muted, and we do that through the web webinars for the simple reason that we want to make sure everyone has a quality experience. So with that, if you have any questions, please do me a favor and go ahead and in your control panel there on your webinar. Do me a favor and just go into questions, ask that question. It pops up on my screen, and I will be able to address that during the session. So I'll incorporate your questions as we go along. Now, as I mentioned, this presentation is going to be recorded. So anything else that may support this conversation or anything in regards to Blueforce or EPAY are posted out on our Gateway site. So all of you should have access to Gateway. And it's just simply gateway.us.issworld.com. And you can visit that after the webinar and actually go out there and see other documentation or videos that we've recorded of a variety of different areas of Blueforce. Our WebPunch agenda for today is basically going to give you a quick system overview. Also go over some terms, basic terms we'll be dealing with on a day in and day out basis. We'll go through the demo. I'll show everyone how to punch in and punch out. We'll do the lunch deductions. We'll go through the process of clocking out for lunch, clocking back in from lunch. We'll go through changing job tasks. We'll also go through allocating hours. Go through the whole process of how to properly allocate hours, kind of an after-the-fact scenario. Then we'll go through, and the last three items we won't focus too much on in this call, but there's three things that we will be able to provide for you within WebPunch, and that's timesheet reviews, reviewing your schedule, and how to change your password if need be. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up our conversation today with a quick discussion on getting help. Essentially, what can you do to reach out to us as far as support needs, or reach out to EPAY directly. So first thing, the system overview. So everyone kind of understands what's happening, kind of big picture. Is basically the Blueforce system, the WebPunch, and the other time collection methods shown here on the screen, like mobile punch, phone in, WebPunch, and obviously Walter. These items shown there on the left-hand side do allow you to have a variety of different ways of punching in and punching out. So in kind of going through that process, the mobile punch piece is obviously here denoted with the yellow arrow. The mobile punch allows you to punch in and punch out on your smartphone device if you choose to go that route. There are a few around the country that are using a mobile punch. We also have phone in. That's a toll-free system that allows you to punch in and punch out via a toll-free number. So really just picking up the phone and punching in, punching out. And then we have Walter down here at the bottom. When Walter is our time clock. So our time clocks allow you to punch in and out with a fingerprint, your biometric information per se, and then your employee number gets you in the system. Today we're focusing on WebPunch, but all these four items communicate with Blueforce. Blueforce is the product that we use to log in to view time, edit time from a editor, submitter, or approver role. And Blueforce is communicating every 30 minutes with JD Edwards, and JD Edwards is our system of record. So basically, when someone punches in, punches out, their employee data is coming in from JD Edwards. We also pull active job numbers. We also pull in active work orders from JD Edwards. Now, JD Edwards then in turn spits out the paycheck information, the direct deposit and pay card. So for all this purpose of discussion is our EPAY system is really for time collection purposes only. And one of the key clouds here that we see at the very top of the screen is our work orders from MyMCS. I know you use MyMCS. However, we are not going to be syncing MyMCS work orders with Blueforce. So what's going to happen there is we'll be revisiting that early in 2016. However, all of your JD Edwards work order information is what's going to be syncing to syncing into Blueforce. So I'll be bringing that a little bit more in discussion as we go a bit further down as to how to get a JDE work order created and how to get that into the system properly. So we'll talk about that here a little bit further on, a few more slides down the road. So that's just a quick system overview so everyone understands and kind of sees how everything's talking to one another. All right, so a few terms that we're talking about today. First one being WebPunch. And WebPunch is just simply the web-based method to record your in and outs, your time basically, and your hours that are sent over to Blueforce. So WebPunch is a small piece of the big picture. Punching in and punching out and lunch punches is basically the employee's way to punch in for the day, punch out for the day, go to lunch using a clock, phone, or web as assigned. And what I mean by assigned is obviously you're going to be able to determine as a submitter and approver, tell the employees, what method of punching in, punching out do you want them to use. Employees have the ability to punch in on any of these methods. However, it takes a little bit of extra processes on your end to get them working on, for example, mobile punch. You have to download the app. If you want them to use a time clock, you're going to have to register them on the clock. Phone in, not much. You have to provide them the toll-free number to punch in and punch out. But you have the means of determining which way you want someone to punch in and punch out. Add edit time card for hour allocation. We're going to go through the add edit time card section of WebPunch, and that's where you're going to do your hour allocations. So we're going to go in there. You'll be able to assign your time, your labor that you've worked, and actually code it to a work order. You can also change a job or task as needed to allocate your time properly. Now, based on your hours allocation, your work orders there, the work order information, as I'll go through a little bit later, has that coding built into it. So that'll determine where the allocation and the hours actually hit on the JD Edwards side. So we'll talk about that in detail in a little bit. Conflict. Conflict is basically an employee who uses the punch in, punch out option or hour allocation for the same date. So if you go in there and try to put in something with the same date, you'll get some conflicts or error messages coming up letting you know that your time that you're trying to enter is not valid. So we'll go through that in a little bit more detail shortly. And the last two here, audit trail, just so everyone knows, is we keep a full audit trail. Basically means any changes that occurred or made in the system, regardless if it's an employee making them, whether it be a editor, role employee, a supervisor, submitter, or approver, whoever makes these changes, everything is being recorded in the system. So we can always go back and find out, all right, how does punch get in there and why was it edited or changed? And lastly, timesheet. Timesheet is going to display the total employee hours for a reporting period. And a reporting period in the system is typically a week, a typical Saturday through Friday week. So from a timesheet view, you'll be able to approve time, you'll be able to add sick vacation, or any other PTO as needed as well. Most of the times for the timesheet, when I talk about timesheet, these approvals are actually done for the submitter and approvers that are on this call. You're going to do these in Blueforce. From an aspect of WebPunch, there is a timesheet view that allows the employees to see their total time in the WebPunch format. And we'll show you that here as well on this call. Alrighty, so kind of as I mentioned, time collection occurs on four basic methods. And I kind of mentioned it's a time clock, the phone system, the smartphone web app, or mobile app, or the web app calling WebPunch we'll be focusing on today. Now you have to have a URL, a valid URL, which basically is an internet address to reach WebPunch. So not anyone can just go in there. And the second part of that, you should have to have a username and password that will be validated by Blueforce. So kind of two things here. If you want someone to use WebPunch, and for everyone on this phone call, I would hope that everyone already has their login credentials for this, you need to request from us here at IT that you get WebPunch access and you have a username and password. So we'll get that set up for you, but we need to know that if you need access. And since we're going live on Saturday, it's very important that we go ahead and get that done ASAP today. Okay, and then once you get that information, an employee can go to any computer or any device that has internet access, log in to WebPunch, and then from there punch in and punch out, which will take on the conversation going forward on this call. So we're going to go through the demo real quick. I'm going to show you a couple things. Talk through some of the slides first that I put together. Then I'll log in into WebPunch, and you'll be able to go through and actually see firsthand how to punch in and punch out. Now, this presentation, as I mentioned a while ago, is being recorded and will be posted onto Gateway following this call. Now, I do have a supplemental document that will go through this that I still quite haven't finished editing a few of the new links that are in there. I'll get that done today, and actually we'll post that on this site as well. And as a kind of a sidebar thing, I'll go ahead and send that document out to everyone involved in this call as well, just so you actually know the steps if you have it for your reference in the future. All right, so where do we get started? All right, so all of your employees are going to be using the WebPunch to punch in and punch out. And if you need to have them punch in and punch out for meal breaks or for lunches, you'll be able to go out there and have their hours recorded as well. Keep in mind that lunch breaks and meal breaks, when you go actually punch in and out, those do not count towards their total time or paid time. So any hours worked or any hours being paid for should be recorded, and they should be on the clock per se, or punched in to get credit for those hours. Now, employees always access the WebPunch through the same URL, which I'll provide here shortly. And we ask that you bookmark that URL for easier access. That way you can always have it. There's no fumbling around. The employees don't have to remember that. It's a long link as it is. And there's no loss of time for that employee trying to fiddle around for 5-10 minutes before figuring out how to punch into the system. And once you punch in through WebPunch, those that have access to Blueforce can actually go into Blueforce and see those punches there immediately. So it's a live system. You'll know exactly when someone punches in, punches out, and all that good stuff. So where do you get started? The login that you'll be using, and everyone keep note here, this link is slightly different from any links you may have been provided in previous WebPunch webinars. So for those that have been punching in and punching out prior to yesterday, you probably have a different link. So if you look at this link here, the major difference between the link that was provided before and what you have now at your disposal is essentially this part right here, the V47. The V47, it was because there's a new version of this WebPunch that we've put into play to accommodate some of the requests that were made from the IFS team that are on this call today. So some of those things dealing with allocation specifically were incorporated into this new version. So if you don't use this new link, you will not be able to see the changes or the cool things I'll be sharing with you today. So be sure. Now, if you use the old link, you can still punch in and punch out. However, like I said, you will not see the new things that will be critical for hours allocation. So keep this in mind. If you write this down, if not, I'll be providing this link for you, or you can go out to the Gateway after this call as well and pull down this link for your reference. Alrighty. So everything you do in WebPunch starts by taking this action. Like I said, I'm going to talk through a couple slides. Then I'll actually log into WebPunch and walk you through a quick demo. So what you will do is once you go to that link, you click on that link, the system will automatically show you the window down below, in which you will be prompted for your company ID, which is always going to be ISS. You will be prompted for your login ID, which will be, most cases, first initial, last name, or first name dot last name, depending on who set it up for you, pretty much. But you'll be provided that information as a login ID, and then you will be provided a password, and that password would be case sensitive that you will be entering in this field. Now, once you have all three fields entered correctly, you would click on the login blue login button. Now from there, WebPunch will take you into the main punch-in, punch-out screen, which is the very first screen that automatically pops up for you. And this is by default, so nothing you can go wrong with here. And from that main screen, all you really need to do is hit punch in. And the reason I say that is the system will automatically default you to your default job. It'll also give you your default task associated to that job. Now, if you need to punch into a job other than your default job, you can always hit the drop down in the job field and pick the other job that fits the job number that you're looking for, or site number. Now, the drop down there, the available jobs I'll show you here in a little bit, are going to be based on the employee's working jobs. So every employee has a set of jobs that he or she can work. It may be one job, it may be 20 jobs. It just depends on the employee. But each employee has a list of all the jobs that they're eligible to work. And if you have multiple jobs available at your disposal, you can hit the drop down and pick a different job. Otherwise, you may only have one job to pick from. Okay, so everybody, when you use WebPunch, you always have to punch in to get the day started. Now, once you punch in or out for the day, whatever punch you're creating, you will get a similar message to what you see on the screen here. It's going to tell you that you've successfully punched in on a certain date and certain time. And then you have the ability to either go back to the punch page to actually go back and do another action, or simply log out. Now, the beauty of this system is if you go in here at any point, you have the ability, like I said, to punch out now. Notice after you punched in, you have some more options on the bottom of the screen. You can now punch for lunch. If you need to go to lunch now, you can click on punch for lunch. If you need to change your task, maybe you're not a custodian, but now you're going to be an engineer, you can hit the change task and now pick a task of engineer. The coding, as far as for those that are on the call that are worried about accounting and how coding works, coding basically works off the job, task, and work order combination. So if you enter, if the employee were to punch in to the correct job, task, and work order combination, then the coding will appear correctly as you like over in JD Edwards. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. And then lastly, you can also transfer to a different site. So that basically means you punched into your default job. In this case, my main office is my job, but now I want to transfer to a different job. So I can click on transfer to a different site and allow me now to basically take my time from that point forward onto my new job. All right, so one of the key things to keep in mind is once I've punched in, and let's say I punch in on my computer and I walk away, once I've punched in, the system will only allow me to keep that active connection for 10 minutes, after which it's going to automatically kick me out. So it's got a 10-minute window, and it automatically log me out for inactivity. Okay, not a big deal. I think one of the big things about this slide I always point out is just because it kicks you out of the system does not mean it's clocked you out. So you still punched in, you still have to come back in the system at some point, log back in to WebPunch, and make sure you punch yourself out. Alrighty, so we're going to stop right there, and we'll come back to allocating time. So let me do this at this point. I'm going to go ahead and quit my session here. And I'm going to go bring up my WebPunch window for everyone to see. And my WebPunch window here allows me to, like I mentioned, the link, when you actually go and bookmark it, it kind of, if you look at the top of the screen, it kind of puts some weird characters in there. But I will send out that link to everybody. And actually, I'll actually, from this session, I'll just go ahead and chat that link here to everybody. That way everyone has it at their disposal right now before I forget. So give me 1 second here. Let me go ahead and get that link for everybody. And so if everyone looks in your chat window on this session, you will see that the link just went through. Now just do me a favor if you just want to copy and paste that into your internet on your side. And then when it comes up on your screen, all you got to do is go up to your favorites menu and save it. That way that you always have it. Now, a few people have reported that they've had a runtime error or some issue with that. What I would urge you to do is do me a favor and contact EPAY support on that one. It's not the link. It's typically something that's running on your machine that's conflicting with the site, or more likely it could be Internet Explorer that's causing the problem. So in most cases, everyone's working just fine. But if you are a WebPunch user and need to get into WebPunch, I would urge you just to, at the end of this call when we get to support, we'll go into discussion about getting some assistance through directly from EPAY. All right, so from this particular window, once you go to that site, you get prompted for your company, which is simply ISS. That's not case sensitive. You can be upper or lower case. That's perfectly fine. Login ID is going to be the login ID that's provided to you. In my case, it's C. Contreras. And then my password, or whatever your password is going to be, you're going to key it in that particular field. Once you've done that, just hit login. And once you hit login, it's going to take you right into the punch in, punch out screen. And it's going to look exactly like this. You'll notice that you have your job, my main office. In this case, that's my default job. And obviously, this is a test job, so we don't code actual real time to production. Task will be a list of all your tasks. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you don't have to, if this is your job that you normally work, or that's your only job, or if from an employee perspective, that's the job they're going to work immediately, all you got to do is come in here and punch in at the bottom of the screen. Okay? But you do have the ability here to hit the drop down, pick your other job. If it's not the job you're going to work in my main office, you want to work at Alamo Cafe today, I can pick that. And then from that, I have, like that says the task. I can pick a different task if need be. But in most cases, job tasks are set for you. All you have to do is come in and hit punch in. Okay. I'll point out two things. Work order. If you know right from the get-go that you're going to be working a particular work order, you can pick it off the list. If you know from a particular note you want to put in there for a transaction, is to put a note for kind of from a maybe to alert the billing group that something is a little different today in your job or task. You can do that as well. Put a note up to 450 characters there. But I'll explain this a little bit more detail as we go through the allocation. That's when we normally see these two functions being used the most. So at this point, just hit punch in. System's going to give you a confirmation on the screen letting you know that you've punched in successfully. Okay, and you'll notice there you have some options. So you go and read that little message, and you have the options either to log out or go back to the punch page. Okay. Now, one of the things to keep in mind here is if I go back to the punch page, it's going to take me back to that screen where I have options to do other things with my time, and that's what I'm going to do for this example. But in most cases, the employees are going to go ahead and hit log out here at this point, just to log out, go start their work day, and then come back to WebPunch later in the day when they have to do and record a different type of punch. So if they were to go away, come back and log back into the system, it's going to take them back to the same screen. It's going to tell them their name, obviously, but more importantly, it's going to tell you the state of their punch. The system, WebPunch is pretty clever. It knows what the last status of your punch was, whether you punched in WebPunch, which like we did today, or even if you punched in on PhoneIn, the mobile punch app, or even the Walter. So in some cases, you may have the employees clock in on another device or another means of time collection, and then come in here in WebPunch and just maybe record a different punch at a different time of day, and that's perfectly fine. You can kind of mix and match the 4 different time collection methods. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is now once I've gone back in, I do have options here now to do other things. Like, for example, if I wanted to, let's see, if I wanted to punch out, if I wanted to punch for lunch now, I can actually click on those 2 options and actually tell the system, I want to do, punch out for lunch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually now punch out for lunch, and it's perfectly fine that I just punched in a minute ago. It's perfectly fine. If I go in here now and I'm getting sent to lunch, I can click on punch out for lunch. And once I do that, it basically pauses my active time, and then any time that I'm under lunch will actually be recorded as lunch in the system. So for those that are editors, submitters, or approvers on this call, you as being able to review and do edits of time can log into Blueforce, go to that employee's record, and actually see that time that is recorded as lunch, that an employee actually punched out for lunch. You can see their time in that time card as lunch. So you'll know exactly how much time they took out for lunch, or they went out to lunch. Now, on the flip side, many of you on this phone call may have automatic lunch deduction set up. What that basically means, if you have auto lunch set up, you're going to have the system automatically deduct the lunches for you. So with that, what you're going to want to do is you're not going to want them to punch in or punch out for lunch. You're going to want them to automatically have the system do that for you. Alrighty. All right. So same thing. Once you come back, once you punch out for lunch, you're going to actually obviously return back from lunch. So then that system automatically once again knows what state you are in. So at this point, you're going to return from lunch. That's the only option that the employee will have to choose from. So when they return from lunch, everything kind of resets itself. You'll get that confirmation one more time. And at that point, you have the ability to log out or once again go back to the punch page. So you see the recurring theme here. You have the ability to always log out or go back to that punch page as needed. Now, punch page, once again, just like I said, if the employee had clogged out at this point, they're going to log right back in here, and this is going to let them know that their last status is this. So then they have the abilities now to do other things like change tasks or transfer to a different site. And what that basically means is I'm coded as a custodian right now, but maybe I want to change to an engineer. All I'm going to do is change the task, and at that point, the system will allow me to now change my task as needed. Okay, so at this point, I can now change it to maybe I want to be a supervisor now, whatever it may be. These are all some test tasks that I have in here, so don't worry. So you may not see yours in here, but these are just test examples. At that point, just hit punch in again, and the system will actually now transfer your time going forward throughout your day to this new task. Same thing as the job selection down here. When you have the option to transfer a different site, same thing, you have the ability to change your job that you're currently on. So this system is very simple to use. It's very flexible. Allows the employee just to use for one quick screen, take care of all their in and out needs as needed. Okay. And then obviously at the end of the day, you're going to come in and punch out for the day. So I'm going to go ahead and hit punch out and stop right there. So kind of from this perspective, the employee has full access to punch in and punch out. Now we'll talk about hours allocation here next. But one of the things to keep in mind is your employees have the ability, if they want to punch into a work order, if they want to punch in to a specific task, job, they have full control of that. So those that are editors, submitters, and approvers of this call, you have full control of determining how you want to accomplish that. You want to put that in the employee's hands, or do you want to take care of that kind of an after-fact thing on your own, or do you want the employees to come back later and allocate their time? So that's going to be something we throw back in kind of in your laps, and you decide how you want those allocations done. Now keep in mind these allocations are for time collection purposes. So right now we're focusing on EPAY being for time collection. So all that stuff you do right now, and kind of talking is kind of in general, everything you do right here for this in the system is for time collection purposes. So real fast, let me go back into my PowerPoint presentation. And let's go into our next slide, which is the allocation slide. So allocating time. Now this is the part that's a little different from any of those that have been in on the previous WebPunch webinars. We've tweaked a couple things in the WebPunch app, so you'll see that momentarily. So you can always go into to the Add Edit Time Cards area to allocate as needed. So that's where we're going to go next to do this. Now this can be done by the employee themselves, which is suggested. Or you can allocate as a supervisor, like an editor, submitter, or approver, and do that in Blueforce as well. So you have some options of where you want to allocate the time. Now, for IFS specifically, there on this call, the process will remain very similar to what you do now. You're still going to have to generate the AB quote. You're still going to get that customer to approve that quote. You're going to email Janice, or you're going to talk to Yolanda if Janice is not in, and one of them is going to process that AB quote and give you a JDE work order number, in which they will email to you, and then the above base coding will be linked to that, will be driven by that work order. So the coding that's been established on that work order. Now you can allocate by selecting a specific work order in Blueforce, and keep in mind that the AB log will still be maintained manually as you do now for the time being. So there's a big project underway to get the billing portion of the process more of an automated system, so that way you can actually not have to do all that stuff manually from the billing perspective. But that'll be done. That's obviously for a whole different discussion, or different call. But as far as EPAY is concerned, as far as Blueforce, WebPunch, all that good stuff, when you allocate, you will be allocating, if need be, to a JDE work order number. Now, everyone, before we go into the allocations piece, everyone has access to seeing all of the active JDE work order numbers for their specific jobs. So keep that in mind. If it's active, you will be able to see it. If it's inactive or it has been inactivated, that JDE work order is no longer available for your use. So we got to keep that. We want to walk a thin line there, because we want to make sure that not only do we see all the active work orders we need, but at the same time we don't want overkill. We don't want to see too many work orders in the system, which just basically creates a lot of noise and traffic in the system for us as well as users. All right, so let's go back into WebPunch. I'm going to show you how to allocate your time in WebPunch. So if those that are employees that are punching in and punching out a system, they'll be needing to do this. This is the process of doing so. So kind of the thought process here is that you as an employee would punch in, punch out, and at the end of the shift, or maybe the next business day when you come back to work, or by the end of the work week or reporting period, you want to be able to go in here and allocate your time to the proper JDE work order as needed. And what you would do is over on the left-hand side, the left-hand column of the screen, you have a link called Add Edit Time Cards. And Add Edit Time Cards is where you would do all your allocations. So if I click on Add Edit Time Cards, I have the ability now to go in and click on Add Edit Time Cards, and the system will show me this nice pretty little screen that has greens and blues and all that good stuff. Well, it's very simple. The blue lines that are on this screen they're showing are letting you know that you have not allocated, or those times have no allocations associated with them. That means that they're just in and out times. Typically just straight to the job number, in and outs. So you have not done any allocations to work orders or anything, things of that nature to those times. The green lines are allocated lines, so basically lines that you've already done allocations towards. So what it's telling me here is that I have some time, for example, on 11/9. Okay. So on 11/9 here, I have a time from 7:51 to 11:34 that I really need to allocate. And what I can do to get those allocated is I can actually go to the allocate button and allocate that time. Now keep in mind, one of the big things about this screen, a couple things that are a little different, is the job selection at the very top of the screen. This job selection is going to show you the job right here with the X, and it's also going to show you the reporting period. Now, keep in mind that it's only showing you the time that that employee has worked for a specific job and that particular week, a reporting period. So let's say, for example, you didn't want that job. You want to allocate time for your other job, in this case called My Main Office. I can pick that other job, hit search again, and it's going to show you the times you've worked for that job. Notice here that I have a lot more availability. And what I mean by availability is that it's showing you the whole work week, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, as no time. That's why it's white. There's no time on those days. But it gives you the ability to go in here and add a time card if you need to. Maybe you didn't punch in one day, or something along those lines. But the white lines are telling you that you have no recorded time for those days. Now it shows this only on the main defaulted job of that employee, so the main default job as needed. Now what I can do here is, let me go back to my other example because I want to allocate time off of Alamo Cafe, the other job that I'm working. And off of that I can go to the 11/9 time and I can do whatever I need to do on that line. But you'll notice that you have two tabs up here. The first tab is simply, let me put the arrow here, Add Edit, which basically says you can add or edit time. But the second tab is the important one. It's called Allocate. So if I go and click on that Allocate tab, the Allocate tab will now allow me to now allocate the time that I want to allocate for. So in this case, if I want to allocate for 11/9, I'm going to go over to the far left-hand side, click on the Allocate link, and let me circle that so everyone can see what I'm talking about. So the Allocate link is what's critical here. That's what's going to run everything for us. So if I come back in here and click on Allocate, the system's going to focus on that one job, in this case Alamo Cafe. It's going to focus on the time in to the time out for a total of 3 hours and 43 minutes. So only thing you can allocate right at this time is that 3 hours and 43 minutes. So at this point, you'll notice that you have two columns down here in the grid. You have a current hours column that shows you 3 hours and 43 minutes in gray. And I also have a new hours column that shows the 3 hours and 43 minutes in white. Now the way that the allocations work is you have the Current hours column, that's basically telling you is that's what's captured right now by the employee, or you as an employee, that's what you punched in and out of. Okay, so you've punched into this job on this particular day for 3 hours and 43 minutes. But let's say your manager comes around and says, you know what, 2 hours of that time need to go to a specific work order. Okay, it's an above base portion of the job that we did, and we want to go ahead and make sure it's classified correctly. Not a big deal. So if we know that we want 2 hours of our time to go to, let's say, that above base work, then what you're going to do is you're going to come in here, you're going to change your new hours to simply 0200 to reflect the 2 hours. Okay. What this does is step one, it basically tells the system on the new hours side that we want to now allocate 2 hours. But more importantly, at the bottom of the screen, notice you have a 2 hour total on the new hours side. So what's going to happen here is what you want to do is now you want to go back over here to the work order side and actually enter the associated work order for this particular job. Okay. Now, I'm showing this route first. I'm going to show you a reverse side of this here momentarily. This is a standard view, which is based off of job, task, and work order. Via some of the requirements from the IFS side, we have geared this view to actually also work based on work order job task as well. So kind of a reverse side. So this view, if you're allocating, you already know the job number. And in some cases on the IFS side, you may not know the job number. That's understood. But for this example, we know the job number. We know we're working at Alamo Cafe. And we know that the work order is going to be HVAC 203. That's the work order number. So in that case, from here, I would go in and pick that work order and then simply go over to the far left-hand side. Let me erase my arrow. Make sure, so my far right-hand side, put in the 2 hours, which I did. That leaves me a balance of 1 hour and 43 minutes. So if I just work the regular job, nothing above base about it, just my standard job duties at this particular job, then I'm going to go in the new hours column and just put in 0143 here. So as long as I have a complete balance of both the current and new columns at the end of this whole process down here, if these two are in balance, then I can go ahead and click on Save. And when I click on Save, I'm going to now get nice little green arrow, green little check boxes, green circles with white check boxes, or white check marks, sorry. They'll now be provided, letting me know that these were successfully saved. If I go in there and try to save and I do not have the same hours in balance on both my current and new hours columns, I'm going to get a nice friendly little error message from the screen or from the system on screen letting me know that I've messed up and I need to go back and make sure everything's in balance. At this point, I hit close, and now I've allocated, you'll notice here on 11.9 that my view allocations link is now available for me, but now I have allocated my time properly for those 3 hours and 43 minutes. Now, one thing that's different about this screen that you all may have noticed right off the get-go is under the Allocate tab here, you have an option of order preference. Now, by default, like I mentioned a while ago, is the system will default your allocation preference by job, task, and work order, which is the default setting for WebPunch and Blueforce. So what that basically means is you go through and you are basically asked, or as an employee, to know that job number. And I know in most cases you know what work order number you worked on, but you don't know what job that was for. So what we have done is we've actually gone in and changed the logic for you for the IFS team to work differently. Now this piece that I'm talking about here and what I'm showing you here for allocations will not be available if you use the old WebPunch link. So it's very critical that you get the new WebPunch link that I just sent out to everybody via your chat, or you get it from a buddy of yours. But if you have to use that new link, otherwise you will not see this functionality. Now, one of the drop-down options here is work order job task. What that basically means is my view here when I go to allocate now. So if I'm going to allocate now time for 11:10, you'll notice that my allocation screen is different. So what this does for me is totally not dependent on the job. Okay, once again, it's not dependent on the job. So what that's saying is if I know the work order that I worked on, notice I have a whole bunch of work orders now. What this is telling the employee is, I don't care what your job number is. I want you to tell me what work order number you worked on. So if I know my work order number because I'm the employee and I'm working, I'm doing the actual performing the duties or the tasks that are at hand, I can actually go in here and say, you know what, I actually worked on Windows today. It was a work order called Windows, and it was work order 201. Okay, or I did a maintenance work order day, and it was 2001 was the number. So for example, for this example, I'm going to hit the drop down. I'm going to pick that maintenance work order number, and notice when I do that, the system automatically defaults my job to the corresponding job name and number that are linked to this particular work order. Once again, I didn't need to know the job number. The system automatically took care of me because it knew that this is a work order number, this is the job it was linked to it, and now if I have a different task, I can pick a different task from the drop down for task. But you're all set up at this point. The employee can now allocate their time properly to the right work order and job, associated job. Now this is one of the big things that was different from your initial WebPunch training if you've been through a webinar before, and that this is functionality that was brought on by a lot of you on this phone call from previous discussions with the IFS team. So at this point, I can go through. I can allocate, let's say, 5 hours to this particular work order. Then I can go through here and let's pick a different work order. Let's pick sprinklers. Notice I changed my main office as well to a different task. I can pick a different task here if need be. Let's say I had another 2 hours on this job. And then let's say I went ahead and worked Windows at my Alamo Cafe job, which is the remaining hours here for this job, so 0256. And when I've done all this, everything is in balance. I can hit save and proceed. Now, one of the things I want to keep everyone's attention on this particular screen is you have these columns, this column called amount. Now, this amount column was mistakenly added by our EPAY support team, so this will be going away. But the key thing also is you have a notes field available at your disposal as well. Now, what that notes field does is allows you to make maybe references to maybe MCS if you want to, any references to maybe the billing team, or if you need to put more detail as to what did you actually do to consider maintenance. Okay, I can say maintenance work, you know, blah blah blah, whatever it may be. I can put any maybe an MCS number in here. If you have the MCS number, you want to reference it there, you can actually do that there. Any note you like, you can put in here as well. So you have spaces to put in notes as needed to reference with your job and your time worked for those work orders. Once I hit save, I'm looking for those green circles again. I got those with the check marks. I'm good to go. I hit close, and now my information is allocated properly. You can always go back, and if you ever want to go back and edit or review the allocations, you can always click on these view allocations links. It'll actually take you back and actually allow you to edit the allocation or actually just view what you've already done. So all in all, it's nothing majorly different other than you have more flexibility to see all your allocation. Now, if you go right now into go into Blueforce or to WebPunch, you will have access to all of your active JDE work order numbers. So all of you on this call are familiar with those numbers, what they are. All you need to just keep in mind is only actives will be visible in the system. So once you've asked Janice, Yolanda, or any of the IFS accounting team to inactivate a work order, or maybe HP is asked to inactivate a work order, those will no longer be available in the system. So keep in mind, make sure you've allocated your time, make sure your time has all been coded before we inactivate a work order, because at that point, once it's inactivated, within the next 30 minutes of it being inactivated in JDE, JDE will send that information to Blueforce and automatically inactivate it in Blueforce as well. So it's very important we get that timing down before we inactivate anything out of the system. Alrighty, so I think we've done actually pretty well with timing today and kind of from a discussion standpoint. So let's go back over to my slides and let's kind of wrap this up. So everyone on this phone call hopefully has access to WebPunch. You can go on to Gateway and request signing up your employees for access to WebPunch. You can also go through the IT help desk to request access to WebPunch. And all we need in either case is essentially the employee's name, the employee's employee ID, and their email address. Now, if they don't have an email address, we can put your email address as a placeholder. But we would like their email address because the system will automatically generate the credentials, send them the link, and actually send them their username and password. And anytime they need any assistance, whether it be through email, EPAY support, or they go online and request an email, a password change, it'll actually email that to them, make it a lot more convenient for them, and I have to involve you as a manager into that discussion as well. So speaking of support, just keep in mind there are a couple of different ways of receiving support as we go through our implementation. We all do go live tomorrow. That's from an IFS standpoint. So if you need any support, you can always contact EPAY directly via that email address, support@epaysystems.com, or via phone at that 877-800-3729 number. In both cases, they are 24/7 support. So if you're at middle of the night at a job site, need to speak to somebody, call them directly. And then lastly also is IT support. If you want to either discuss any issues with an IT standpoint, Tiandra and I will be happy to help you with that. We ask you if you could do us a favor, go to the help desk, put in a help desk ticket, or you can actually call the help desk phone number 210-495-6093, and that'll put your information in the queue. We always get inundated with emails, so it's to kind of your benefit to go through the help desk. That way we can actually focus on the queue that's coming in on the help desk side, and then we kind of funnel through our emails as we can throughout the day. So it's a lot quicker if we go through the help desk. And with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. I apologize for our inconvenient late start, but if you know at the time, it's 12:01, perfect timing. If there are any questions, concerns regarding WebPunch, like I said, just reach out to us. Let us know what those questions are. We'll be happy to assist you. If you need anyone set up and in the system to get going on this as well, please let us know, and we'll take care of that as well. We do have one more webinar scheduled for this week. I believe it's at 2 p.m. Central Time, so here in about 2 hours. Same information will be covered, same discussion points. So if you'd like to join that again, you're more than welcome to. Or, like I mentioned, this is being recorded and will be available to everyone on Gateway later today. So thank you all for joining us today. Thanks for asking a lot of wonderful questions out there today. And we'll get back to you. We'll see you again here in the near future. Thank you so much.